Hello, hello, everybody. I am Joey Roberts. I'm a marketing director at Lifesight. I can see that the room is filling up. Just take a few minutes to let everybody come in. And hello, hello. It's funny, since we logged on, I'm already seeing like numbers tripling. So if you're already in, thank you for being on time. Save your spot because the room is filling up. So if you leave, you might not be able to get back in. Couple things. First, find the chat and let us know where you're watching from. I am in Austin, Texas. So I'm just going to put in here. And this also lets us know that the chat is working. Awesome. We have London. Oh, one cool trick on Zoom. Totally fine if you send the message to hosts and panelists. You can also switch for it to be to everyone. Just so you know, I will be checking the chat throughout this awesome presentation we have planned for you. And you can, again, do everyone or hosts and panelists. Yes, awesome, Jamie, you toggled and figured it out. Lots of people. We have Venice, San Antonio, Louisville, Kentucky, New York. Who is the farthest away? Ooh, London. Okay. Oliver is winning far away. New York, love New York. Awesome. For those of you who are just joining, I am Joey Roberts, marketing director at Lifesight, and we're just putting in the chat where we are watching from. A couple housekeeping things. We're going to get started in about 1 minute. Give yourself this time. This is a time for you to sit here and think about Q4 planning, just learn from all the information that Rohit has, which, by the way, he has never shared with anybody. So this is an exclusive webinar prepared just for you. Put everything away, but ask your questions in the chat. We'll try to get to them during the presentation. If not, stay on to the end. Again, we are not going to go super long. And okay, it's just doubled as the rooms come in. So the room is filling up. We're probably going to get full. So stay in. And I am going to just introduce myself one more time. I know you've already heard it, but I'm Joey Roberts, marketing director at Lifesight. Let us know in the chat where you're watching from. Very excited to introduce Rohit to you. If you haven't seen or met him yet, you're probably following him on LinkedIn, but Rohit has spent the last decade helping brands answer one of the toughest marketing questions: what's actually driving growth? Long before unified measurement became an industry priority, Rohit was helping organizations connect incrementality testing, attribution, offline measurement into a single framework for decision making. So that's why I'm super excited for this session today. You're going to learn things that have never been shared, all about agentic systems. I'm not going to ruin it for Rohit, but you can tell how excited I am to learn and hear all about it. So put your questions in the chat. We will get to them. And again, we're not going to go too long. And I'll hand it over to you, Rohit.
Thank you, Jamie. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm Rohit. I'm one of the co-founders here at Lifesight. Today, I'm super excited to share with you what we've been building over the past few months, and also to cover how you could essentially improve media planning and your decision-making workflows with AI agents, right? And so we're going to be talking a little bit about some strategies on how to plan for Q4, and more specifically, how to plan for a Q4 that still holds up in January and February, right? And so before we get into anything, I really wanted to ask all of you one simple question, right? If you had to reallocate 20% of your Q4 budget tomorrow, or even if your CFO gave you like $2 additional million to spend on Q4, where would you put it, right? And, sorry for calling it a simple question. It's not a simple question. It's actually a very difficult one to answer, especially if you've been in the thick of it. And if you've managed, large teams who are spending large amounts of money on Q4, season, it's a very difficult question to answer, right? And so, how many of you would actually be very confident to answer that question, right? So obviously, I mean, essentially, the premise of this question is how do you maximize your revenue and profits based on, the kind of budget that you've been given, right? And so, to do this, we all know that you're going to have to spend on the channels that are actually truly driving incremental revenue and not just what your platforms are saying it drove, right? And also, what if you had to send that answer to your CFO by like tomorrow or by 5 p.m. today? Could you actually do it? And then could you actually defend it, right? Most importantly. And so most growth leaders that I speak to, like CMOs and heads of growth, they can't answer this question, right? And it's too long. And it's not because they have too little data or whether they don't know how to access the data or don't have the insights behind it, but it's essentially behind these two big problems, which is basically is that they're not using causal measurement methodologies like MMM or geotesting. And second, they need a very long time and a big team of analysts to essentially access those insights, right? And because the insights that these methodologies produce are difficult to decipher, right? And so that's what the gap is today that I'm going to be talking about, and we'll be going through some of that, right? And so the way we're tackling the topic today is firstly through how you can run your Q4 plan tomorrow morning before you lock in anything, right? And two, I'll run through like a sample Claude connected a planning session with our latest Lifesight MCP, and with the agents working on real, Q4 allocation with real causal numbers, right? And third is one discipline that basically is going to separate your plan from the others, right? And so here's my opinion, right? Most Q4 plans aren't wrong about the numbers, right? The numbers that the plan is pulling out is real, right? But they're obviously wrong. And in many cases, they're wrong about the numbers, which numbers to actually trust, right? And so in Q4, the channels that look best on your dashboards, your platform reported numbers and so on, or your multi-touch attribution dashboards, are often not the ones that are actually truly incremental, right? And it's not because the channels are bad, it's because the measurement is bad, right? And so the teams that often do well and often, surpass their plan expectations, they don't have any better channels than you do, right? Or everyone does, right? They just have better evidence about which dollar is actually working, right? And so let me walk you through basically three reasons these numbers could mislead you, right? And so especially for Q1, right? And so reason number one is the demand flood, right? In Q4, the whole market is in market, right? You have the holiday intent, it's spiking, whether you pay for it or not. And then you've got your last click models that are essentially handing all the credit to the last touch, right? And so the channels that are closest to the purchase are often looking like the heroes in this, and even for the sales that were coming anyway, right? And so some of this is definitely generally truly incremental, but some of it is, your brand taking credit for the season, right? And so the point I'm trying to make here is that you cannot tell any of this from your existing platform dashboards, right? You have to run causal measurement, and the question is not what got the click, but in essence is what would have happened anyway, right? And so the second reason is that the averages basically are hiding the margin, right? Blended ROAS that you see in a typical MTA dashboard averages your efficient spend and your wasted spend into one very comfortable number, and it can look perfectly healthy, while your next dollar, the one that you're actually going to add to your Q4 spend, is actually returning far less, right? And so this same logic is basically hiding in discounting, for example, right? Where the revenue was already coming and it's now booked in as a promo conversion, right? And so the fix is very easy to say, but it's very hard to do. You have to plan on the margin, not the average, right? And basically you plan on the next dollar and not the average dollar, right? And so and then you have your final reason that I think no one really talks about, which is the fact that the quarter doesn't end in December, right? The Q4 plan, any Q4 plan that is essentially ignoring Q1 is basically the wrong thing, right? You have your post-holiday effect, which is basically demand dropping sharply. And if your Q4 was all about just harvesting that shopping season spend, you're going to walk into Q1 dead on arrival, right? And so, and all of that spend that you've done that is actually designed to build future demand is typically what they cut in Q4, right? You don't spend on brand and so on and so forth, and you won't feel it until February when there's nothing left for you to make on, right? So you have to plan these 2 quarters as a single as one, right? And so here's the framework that I'm going to walk you through, which is how we basically run a three-question stress test. And so the first one being, where am I saturated? What revenue would have happened anyway? And what does this do to my Q1, right? And here's the thing, everyone's answer is going to be different for every brand and every category, every country. And so that's the whole point, right? If your plan can't answer all of these three things, all of these three things, it's not ready for prime time, right? And so I'll take you through each of that, all of them. And if you need help with this at all, just feel free to scan the QR code, book a free consult and audit, and we'd be more than happy to help, right? And so let's go to the first question, right? Where am I saturated? And the biggest Q4 planning that you can do is basically adding to the budget to the channels that work last quarter or any other period before that, right? And so the channels that are working today isn't always the one that's going to return the most tomorrow, right? And so the numbers that we want to look at is your marginal ROAS and not your blended ROAS, right? Blended basically averages everything out and it hides the diminishing returns for each channel. And so marginal ROAS will actually tell you what the true return of the next dollar, right? And the three signals that you see, if any one of those are true, any additional spend isn't growth, right? It's just pure waste, right? And so, and the most important thing I have to reiterate is none of this marginal return marginal return insights are going to be visible in your standard platform dashboards, right? And so what is the play here, right? What do you do? So first thing you have to do is essentially cap the saturated channel at the current level, right? You don't cut it, you just stop adding. Two, you find the channels with the steepest marginal curve, where your next dollar is going to, earn you the most return. And three, you reallocate first, right? You don't add. So that's your initial plan that you have to have, right? This is where most teams get it wrong, right? They think Q4 means just go on a spending spree and add more budget on everything. That plan can still work well, but you're essentially hiding that waste, right? And you're not really trying to decipher what is truly going to, optimize your plan with the existing budget, right? Which is basically moving money to the existing right places. Okay. And so then we jump into question two, which is what revenue would happen anyway. And this is the question I feel is the most important, and it basically separates the teams that win versus the teams that don't. And in essence, every plan tends to overcredit the touch that is closest to the purchase, right? The true test is essentially, did it get the click? The true test isn't did it get the click, but the true test is would the sale would happen anyway without it, right? And so if you think about it by funnel position and not by channel, the bottom of the funnel touches the demand that's already in motion, right? You got your brand search terms, you're catching people that are already looking for you. You've got promotions that are crediting buyers who have converted at full price otherwise. And also, all other culprits in the same bottom of the funnel tactics, right? And so if most of that sales would happen anyway, you're basically funding this waste, right? Complete waste, and the channels that are working for you, the only way to know that is through some proper causal measurement, right? And so then we look at the play, right? What is how do you actually measure that, right? And there are basically what we call the triangulation process, or maybe three methodology process, or what we call unified measurement process. I think the industry consensus is that it's called unified measurement, and it's basically this process of using geolift, causal MMM, and incrementality adjusted attribution. And this is something that we do every day here at Lifesight. GeoLift is where we hold out a region and we run the plan everywhere else, and then you measure the gap to kind of decipher what's the incrementality there. And then you have your causal MMM, which is a causal model that is built with a causal graph at a channel level. And basically, you can also calibrate it with the same data that you use for testing. And finally, then use those two methodologies to inform your incrementality adjusted attribution, which is where you calibrate your granular campaign level reports with incrementality insights derived from those two methods, right? To really reflect the causal lift from each of those line items. So you don't need all three from day one, but you definitely need to start considering it depending on your data maturity and your size of spend and your channel mix and so on and so forth. But you have to run this before BFCM, right? Well ahead of BFCM and basically or Q4, and you have to the answers will be there to defend your budget, right? And let me tell you, the answers are going to be uncomfortable if you haven't done this before, right? And final question, what does this plan do to my Q1? Q1 isn't just a standalone quarter. The spend that builds this future demand carries into January and February. And if you're only harvesting in Q4, then your Q1 is going to be very cold, right? And so the important thing is that the causal model can actually help you see that carryover effect and instead of then discovering it much later, right? And so I'm not promising that the model will spit out like this perfect Q1 number on how to spend, but I'm just saying that you can start you can start measuring the patterns instead of guessing at it, right? And so, yeah. And so how do you protect the Q1 pipeline? You decide what share of spend in Q4 builds this future demand versus harvesting it. You basically measure the leading signals, your search intent lift, your direct and inorganic lift, new customer rate, and so on and so forth. And these then tell you it's working before the conversion actually lands, right? And finally, three is you always account for lag, right? Demand that you build now is going to convert later. And so you have to plan for it. And once you have measured it using causal measurement, you basically can prove it, right? You have the evidence to back it. Right? And so, yeah, just to recap, if your plan can't answer any of these three numbers with your any of the questions with your numbers, your own numbers, and not just rules of thumb or benchmarks or platform reported ROAS on average, if they can't answer that, it's not ready, right? Again, please reach out if you need any help with this, right? And so let's move along to the demo. Jump straight into a demo in Claude, which is basically a Claude instance integrated with our MCP. And the MCP is connected to our entire causal model and all of the platform insights that we generate in Lifesight. And basically, if you're a customer today, you would be able to access this. And this is a sample customer real data, but we've stripped out the names and logos. But in essence, a mid-market D2C brand, 40 million in revenue, 8 million in paid spend. And Q4 is basically like half their entire year, right? And so they run about, I think, 20 tactics across like social, search, video, CTV, and so on and so forth. And if you look at their plan today, if an average, media planner looking at the plan, everything just checks out, right? It looks beautiful, it makes sense, and it looks completely reasonable, right? But in essence, when you start digging into the numbers, you're going to see that it reveals some other very interesting insights, right? So let me just jump into Claude itself. So if you look at Claude, I'm sure everyone is now a big fan of Claude. It's my preferred AI agent. I don't know if what tools you guys use, but you can connect this to Claude or ChatGPT at this moment. And you would connect it using the MCP server, right? So if you look at Lifesight MCP that I have connected here, it is basically where you would add the MCP server, and then it would take you to your Lifesight account to authorize Claude to access your data. And then you would be able to access all of our tools that you can see here, right? Which is basically where Claude is talking to our agent, Mia, which is our primary agent that then distributes it to countless of dozens of other agents that are within our entire agentic platform, right? And if you look at a chat that I've initiated here. I'm not going to run it live because it takes some time to actually run. We are short on time, but in essence, I've pre-run this, and you can see that the AI agent is not actually creating these answers, right? It's basically tapping into the insights that we have in the platform, and I've basically asked it in a single prompt, heading into Q4 before I plan anything. First and foremost, we want to understand what is the plan going to be built off, right? Which is what is the marginal ROI channels that are above $1, for example, right? What is going to pay me back on every dollar that I spend, right? And so this then churns out some of these insights that we pulled for 20 channels or tactics. And basically, this shows you all of the different channels, and it very intuitively shows you that some of these channels are going to yield more return than others, right? And you got some insights behind it. And then second question I want to ask is basically, if I get that 2 million additional dollars, and if I just spend it as it is today, what would happen, right? And so, and here it quantifies quite nicely by pulling the right tools, right? It's pulling the get current budget tool, for example, and it's able to then say that, about 60% of your revenue, of your spend is going to be wasted if you just follow the current status quo, right? And so that's a big red flag. I just want to quantify that waste amount before I actually move on to figuring out what the optimal plan looks like, right? And then finally, in a single prompt, literally, you can just say, now let's go ahead and build this Q4 plan with the additional $2 million, and we get some insights from it, right? So it automatically knows to pick up Q4. It automatically knows, the optimization that is pulled out, and basically tells you how much incremental revenue you can make from that, and what is your overall ROI from it, and what is the reallocated budget across all the channels, the entire channel mix, right? And what are we going to reduce? Or what are we going to scale up? And how are we going to do it in proportion, in a specific amounts, right? And, and from there, you can basically see the explanation as to what it is all about. And finally, you get a media plan that you can then deliver to your channel managers, and basically reallocate some of these budgets, and export it. As you know, if you use Claude, you can really do some amazing things with it. You can get them to download Excel sheets, even turn it out to a deck. I can show you an example of that. And so in this case, I actually told it, hey, let's assume that I didn't get the $2 million in budget. What would a re-optimized plan with existing budgets look like for me, right? And so again, a slightly more, advanced prompt. And it's basically analyzed some of the insights that we got. It searched all the available tools. It's actually pulled out the budgets. It's actually built out Ask Mia. And in essence, it's come back with the optimal plan, and it's telling me that I can still get some decent uplift, projected uplift from the reallocated budget, right? So that's, I think, music to your ears for anyone planning today. You have to have your backup plan where if your CFO says no to the Q4 increase in budget, you are able to come back to them on something better, right? And how would you come back to them with some on that? You generate a nice board deck that you truly talk to them about how this reallocated budget. You can make this interactive. You can literally tell them the whole story about what you're going to put, where you're going to put your money in, where you're going to take it out from, and then finally you can tell them what they can expect from this entire thing, right? And so in essence, the experience of moving from data or from model to decisions is like completely accelerated today. I think that's the biggest issue with marketers or even planners today, when they're stuck on the insights that are within the platform, but they can't operationalize it until an analyst or a marketing scientist tells them what to do, right? And so this is where we want to kind of shorten that, bridge that gap today, right? And with that, I will pass it back to Jamie. And sorry, Joey.
All
Sorry about
good. Very,
that.
very powerful stuff you're sharing there. Let me just share my screen, jump back in. The speed on that, especially, apologies, you have to look at this right now. All right, can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Awesome. The speed alone and some of the things you pointed out is wanting to do this before Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And as you've been discussing all of this, I have to tell you, it has raised a lot of questions for me, and I'm sure everybody watching, about Q4 planning, where to shift our budgets, what is actually driving incremental revenue in our businesses. So as all of us are thinking about Q4, it's pretty clear it's not really about asking whether the plan is different from last year, but whether it's the confidence in that plan based on evidence or assumptions. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%.
Because the teams that win in Q4, and as you pointed out, also Q1, won't be the ones with the biggest budgets. They'll be the ones making better decisions.
100%.
And we would love to continue this conversation with you one on one, of course. And so we have opened up some number of Q4 planning sessions that we'll do privately with you. And this is an opportunity where you can bring your budget, your measurement questions, your growth goals, and we'll help
Yeah,
you review your assumptions and identify opportunities to drive more growth, which, as Rohit pointed out, that could also mean keeping spend the same. So, like you said, if the
yeah,
CFO doesn't approve your budget, where are you going to allocate that budget? And one thing I caught when you were giving the demo is there's so many different channels, and you can actually see how the podcast is performing and what you want to be budgeting and forecasting for Q4 going into Q1. So very, very powerful stuff, and you can move quickly. I'm showing a QR code right now. Oh, on this QR code, if you could help me out, take your phones out and scan it and let me know in the chat that it's working. Just give that a test and put in the chat. And while you're finding the chat, please go ahead, put your questions in the chat. We'll get to some of them. Now, we have had some questions come in throughout, Rohit, which I know
yep.
it's hard to balance the
Fire
chat.
away.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
start with one of the questions that came in. One of it was about like data, like how much data do you actually need to get this up and running quickly? Like are we behind?
Um, how much data do we actually need to get this running? So there are two different things that need to happen in this whole process. So first thing, there are two very different timelines, and it's worth separating them, right? One is where we will first build a causal model, right? And of course, if you have marketing science expertise, you can just use our platform and build the models for you, as well as then run experiments that can auto-calibrate and stuff like that. That's the real work, right? And it takes quite a few weeks and even sometimes months. Um, and then the second part is where once the model exists and once you have your clean insights, getting that answers out is where this entire solution comes into play, right? Where it's 60 seconds or maybe minutes for you to get answers out of that model. And that's where the magic is. And when you integrate our Lifesight MCP, this is not making the measurement faster, it's making the decisions faster, right? And so, yeah, so that's, I would say anywhere between weeks to months, depending on the type of business that you are. And then finally, minutes to get answers. Yeah.
Yeah, the minutes to answers is so impressive. It's just so much power there. Being a marketer for so long, it's like this is exactly where it's so exciting. How do
Yeah.
you know? Another question just came in. It says, how is this different from just pasting the data into an agent like ChatGPT and asking
Mhm.
it to come up with a budget?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we've had this quite a bit when we talk to clients as well as people who are running like open source models and stuff like that, right? How is it different from open source model versus Licesight's model? And how is it different if you just use Claude or ChatGPT to basically run the model? So this general LLMs are trained on obviously public data and stuff like that. They have no insight or they don't have a model built just for your business, right? So if you just paste in the numbers and you ask it to optimize it, it's just going to give you some very confident, plausible, made up answer, right? Which is most probably hallucinating in some, it's basically pattern matching, right? And it's not truly measuring causality, right? And so a LifeSite does that first, right? What you saw today wasn't Claude doing math on the fly. It's not modeling on the fly. It's not running a statistical model. It's actually Claude asking the causal model that we have in Lifesight how exactly it should be optimizing things, right? And our MCP server has all the context. It has the skills and stuff like that, but built in order to output the best result, the most accurate result, right? And we have guardrails into for all of these things in order for it to not spit out wrong answers. So if it doesn't know, it's just going to say it doesn't know, right? So yeah.
And How do you know the model's correct? Like, is it ever wrong? Can the data be messy?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. You shouldn't basically trust, it's like trusting an analyst, right? If an analyst comes back to you with a recommendation, do you fully trust that analyst, right? And so you shouldn't always like fully put 100% trust in everything. You have to look at the evidence. And so we make it very easy for you to kind of, question how did the model come up with those answers, and how did the agents come up with those answers or recommendations. And the best part, you can ask it like continuously, and cut the answer questions 100 different ways, right? And so, firstly, it's the model. So it comes with all kinds of precision insights that we have built in order to ensure that only the most confident answers go out to you. And so anything that it looks that's unsure of, it will recommend for testing and stuff like that. And secondly, the it's basically how a human actually has to interpret all of that data, right? At the end of the day, it's not like a auto execute button and everything just magically, re-optimizes itself. We kind of help you surface that opportunity and ensure that your data the model is not reading off messy data and all of that, and basically gives you the best decisions. Yeah.
Perfect. And then we have a clarification question on data. When we're
Yeah.
talking about data, like what does this work with? Like what type of media? Maybe like linear media or even question around billboards.
Everything, everything, right? So the beauty of the unified measurement methodology is that it treats all channels equal, and the ability to measure it equally, right? It doesn't say, hey, digital is measured this way, and then offline is measured a different way. The whole premise of unified measurement is to put up all the channels against each other, and in essence, our MMM and testing methodologies are basically going to help you do that very in a confident way. Yeah.
Yes, very good answer. And thank you in the chat for letting me know that the QR code is working. I can see a couple sessions are still available. We opened a few of them, so if you want to book your session with us, please go ahead and do that. We have more questions coming in. One of them is, does it ever hallucinate? Can it ever just make up numbers?
So yes and no, that's a fair question. And again, the honest answer is that the agent isn't actually doing the thinking, right? The numbers are, they don't come from the model trying to guess. It comes from your own causal model, the one that is based off your own data. And it's something that your team is already, if you have it in-house, that's something that your team already trusts. And the assistant is just that interface, right? And so the way we do it, we put in all kinds of guardrails and stuff like that to protect from hallucinations. And that's what makes it kind of safe to act on, right? But you should always question it. You should always ask questions about how did it arrive at those answers? And then from there, you can take the next best action. Yeah.
Yes, agree. And Rebecca, I see you were kind of asking a question along specific industries. So hopefully that question answered your question. If not, let us know. But it goes off of
Yes.
your data for your planning.
Yes.
So nothing is
100%.
ever made up.
Yeah, any industry, it does have more context because when we feed in those questions, when we feed in the context, when we feed in your data, we also feed in context. So our team of specialists would be interviewing you with regards to how is it that you make decisions, who manages all your accounts, what is your business context, right? Like, how much budget do you have? How much typical budgets do you have room to expand on? What is your target audience? Are you going for new customer acquisition versus retaining existing ones? All of your strategies built into one context file that it is then fed into the model as well as then fed into the AI agents when it actually starts reading that. So it definitely has context about your own business. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on that, you don't have to do this alone. Like our team can do it with you. So the questions around like how do I get this up and running and what does it cost? And our team does it with you. Rohit, you can touch on that too, but a lot of questions about how do I get this going and what's it going to cost me?
Yeah, I mean it's basically it's free for any Lifesight customer. So if you're a customer with a plan with Lifesight, it's free. And basically we have our measurement strategy team and our marketing science team that works with you to build your initial model and then recommends a bunch of tests that you can do. And so this is like an ongoing process of getting the model to the best place it can be. And then you're off to the races. After that, you're just connecting to our MCP from your Claude account and you're accessing that model and you can ask any question and build any plan that you want without even accessing the LifeSet platform after that, right? Yeah.
Yes. Very great. Okay. Any last questions are coming in. If we don't get to your questions, we'll compile them all and email them out to you in our follow-up email. But again, some opportunity here before Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Q4 to just have a conversation with us. And this is exclusive to this webinar. So we're just opening up these spots specifically for you. Rohit, why don't you give us some last advice?
Yeah, I think it's an exciting time to be, in this to get your measurement right and change your. It's very difficult for some people to change because the companies are structured in such ways and the teams are structured with different KPIs and stuff like that. I think this year is the time to change, right? And to be able to leverage some of these tools that are available and easily accessible and in essence start making some good decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, really good advice. And thank you for sharing your brilliant mind with all of us today and opening up
Awesome.
these special sessions. We'll leave the QR code up for another minute or so. And we really look forward to learning more about all of your businesses and how LifeSite can help you grow.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. It's great to have presented this to you. And yeah, take care.
Thank you all.
Bye.